Here's everything you need to know about how to follow UX ethics closely in our community teamwork. TechFleet recognizes that some projects require a higher degree of sensitivity due to the nature of the topic. The following ethical principles should guide all aspects of the work, particularly where research ethics are concerned. Overall, TechFleet project members are expected to be respectful and compassionate to study participants at all times. Respect stakeholders, their clients, and the trust they place in us. Respect social science and research norms associated with research involving human subjects, particularly concerning informed consent. Researching with vulnerable populations. TechFleet members should never research with vulnerable populations without going through the board of directors and seeking an IRB institutional review board. Vulnerable populations are defined as: a vulnerable person is an individual who experiences diminished autonomy due to physiological, psychological factors or status inequalities. This includes, but is not limited to, children under the age of 18, adults with wide-ranging levels of abilities, older populations, active prisoners. If a team is ever in the situations where they want to do research with vulnerable populations, they must first contact the board of directors at info@techfleet.org to discuss the process of setting up an IRB before they do research. While these ethics should cover all UX research, we must be particularly cognizant of sensitivity when working with vulnerable populations who may require additional protections. As defined by the Department of Health and Human Subjects, vulnerable populations include children, prisoners, pregnant women, fetuses, mentally disabled persons, and economically and educationally disadvantaged persons. Vulnerable populations may also include those who could be re-traumatized by research or who are in danger of harm as a result of their participation in research. Therefore, in conducting any UX research involving human subjects, including interviews, surveys, field studies, diary studies, etc., the following best practices should be followed. Researchers should ask whether participation in this research is likely to cause participants stress, mental or physical harm. Research questions must be reviewed by all members of the research team, project leads, as well as people with subject matter expertise to make sure questions are appropriate. Researchers should prepare a script explaining the purpose of the research to participants using plain language and minimal jargon. Researchers must inform participants in advance if any sort of record will be made that could personally identify them, such as through the inclusion of names, voices, or faces. Examples of records includes written notes, transcripts, and audio or video recordings. Researchers will explain to participants how the data will be analyzed and how findings and recommendations will be used. Researchers should give space for participants to ask questions about the research and its uses. Researchers will ensure that data is anonymized and identifying information is not associated with the data. Participants must be informed that they have the right to withdraw their data from analysis at any point during the study. Researchers must explicitly inform the participants that if at any time they would like to stop the interview, they are encouraged to inform the researcher with no negative repercussions. Research should be conducted with the minimum number of researchers necessary to accomplish the work, that is, one interviewer and one note taker. Participants should give consent to the presence of a note taker and anyone else present. The purpose of a note taker is to observe the research process, ensure information is gathered accurately, follow up with the interviewer to share feedback on any ethical concerns or concerns about how they responded to the participant. Interviewers are expected to openly receive respectful feedback. If interviews will be captured as an audio or video recording, researchers must have a plan for how these recordings will stay confidential, and they should explain to the participants who will have access to these recordings and what will happen to these recordings when the project is complete. Participants should give informed verbal consent at the beginning of recorded interviews. Should written consent be required? A template for written consent can be found here. Informed consent allows participants to understand why the research is being conducted, that they have the right to stop the interview for any reason, that researchers will make every attempt to guarantee the safety of their data, that participants have the right to ask that their interviews not be recorded should they so desire. A sample script before recording should cover information such as the following. Since our interview is for research purposes, it would be helpful if I video record our interview. Do I have your permission to start recording now? It's okay to say no, and you can decide to stop recording at any time for any reason. Researchers will have a plan in place for recognizing whether participants are finding the research triggering of traumatic experiences. Tech Fleet team members who are working on projects where traumatic experiences may resurface should also take note of resources available for trauma-informed/trauma-responsive research and design practice. This is a work in progress, but a few are listed below. More experienced researchers should model for newer researchers how to respond to emotional reactions or unexpected situations that may arise.